Okay, this video is dedicated to the Los Angeles Comic Book and Science Fiction Convention. If you were a collector in I don't know if it was even the late 70s or definitely through the 80s, 90s, 2000s, I think this convention went on either on a monthly basis. I think it turned into maybe bi-monthly later on. But if you were a comic book collector, a serious one, you've probably attended one of these shows. And I happen to have some flyers of this show from 1981. Okay, that's the first time I attended this show. And I don't know where the first location of it was, or if this is the location that I went to. I think it was the Sheraton Townhouse on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. Okay, I know this isn't going to be like some dynamic convention or comic book related material here, but I thought there is nothing that I can find on the internet in regards to this show, and it went on for so long, so I thought there needs to be something up, and I came across these flyers. As a collector, I collected everything, so if it happened to be convention information pages, uh, Xeroxes probably back in those days. I don't know if there were any other copiers, but I don't know. I thought we would put something up in regards to this show. You can find some photographs of this show later on. Anyways, okay. So let's see. Okay, it says here on this flyer, at the Sheraton Townhouse, that will be the last month the convention will be held at that hotel. Okay, the people at the Sheraton Townhouse became unreasonable to deal with after being there just 2 months. Okay, I think the first show that I went to was before this one. I don't remember. I was a kid. after, as after as after being there just 2 months, they raised the room rentals and then said the hotel policies requires that two security guards be on duty, and they are charging the convention $18 an hour for each guard. There was no mention of security guards being necessary for the July and August conventions, and if this had that hotel, uh, the above is just some of the reasons the convention has been moving back and forth between hotels. Starting December 7th, the convention will be held at the Los Angeles Hilton Hotel, Wilshire Boulevard in downtown. Okay? Okay, now I think I attended this one. Special guest Roy Thomas. Writers of such comic books as Star Wars, Conan the Barbarian, Avengers, and many, many more will be appearing in person at the November 2nd convention. Roy is now writing for DC Comics, and Roy will be talking about some of the new comics he is writing and creating for at DC. Roy will be speaking at 1 p.m. So I went to this show. It wasn't the first convention I went to, and I know that because I took a photograph of him on an old camera, and I have two or three comic books signed by Roy Thomas, and I think it's Hulk 80's, okay? I have 3 copies of that book, and I believe I got them at that convention there. And I think he signed all of them. I don't remember. It's a couple of them, I think. Okay, films, cartoons. The horror film for November will be the rarely shown Amicus film From Beyond the Grave, starring Peter Cushing. Coming attraction. Okay, I won't read this whole thing, but it just says coming attractions, some more films. Doc Savage, Man of Bronze. You know, back then you didn't have VHS tapes, so you couldn't see these things. So seeing, these types of films on the itinerary of these different conventions, it was pretty big. You'd often see like Bruce Lee movies, or at one of the conventions, it was a Star Trek bloopers reel, and that like played at all the shows at some point in time during the day. Crazy Cats, cartoon. Some people expected to see that, but instead saw a different Crazy Cat cartoon. Apologies are in order. The film rental company gave the convention the wrong cartoon. It's interesting here. They weren't doing typesetting back then, so I don't know how he got that kind of a thicker type right there. Maybe he I don't know. Maybe he just went back and retyped that whole thing. You know, you go backspace, 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 or something. Then you type those same letters again to give it a bold feel to it. Might have been the thing that happened on just a regular um, typewriter, or maybe electric one at the time. I don't know. Doctor Who fans right here. Um, okay, remember the convention is held the first Sunday of every month. I believe that was the case with most of these conventions throughout the years, okay? All right, so anyways, that was one. But here, get this. I kind of, looked through a couple of these and I found it kind of interesting here. Um, oh, okay, it wasn't on this one right here, but let's just go. I'm just going to go through this really fast right here. This was a November 2nd show in 81. Okay, now this one was before that, I guess, January 4th right here. I know this is boring stuff, but again, it's just kind of for the record of, I don't know, just talking about this show that was such a fixture, for comic book collectors back then. But this one is January 4th, 1981, Hilton Hotel. Okay. Admission is still 50 cents. That was the admission for a really long time. He must have been, I mean, he wasn't getting his money during, for the gate. It must have been for the booths, and I doubt if they were very expensive, even relative to that period of time. Okay, and the convention back then, it was almost all comic books. Okay, there weren't like toys or anything like that, or artist booths at this show. Okay, sometimes they might get a name artist, but not too often. Roy Thomas, that was a well-known name in comics, but there would be typically one guest like that, or later on they would be getting someone from Filmland, and it wouldn't be too big of a names at this point in time, at least. But let's see, the film room for January will be extra large and will be the largest film room the convention has ever had. So, probably rented out one of the banquet rooms and set up a projector back then. It was probably showing, real actual film. So, the world of comic books featuring Neil Adams, Stan Lee, Jim Steranka, shows how the human fly was created. Neil Adams in a story conference on the Superman versus Ali book. Okay, so that came up recently, the passing of Neil Adams on a couple of the comic book channels. So it'll be repeated this one. I wouldn't be surprised if the world of comic books is on YouTube right now. I'll have to check that out. But Doctor Who and the Daleks, starring Peter Cushing, Daleks, I don't know how to pronounce that. Doc Savage, Man of Bronze. Okay, Enter the Dragon, see the Bruce Lee movies. That was always going on at these conventions. Comic-Con in San Diego, I remember, would always be playing different Bruce Lee movies, which are always a big type of hit. Empire Strikes Back Trading Cards Series 3 have just come out and will be at the January 4th convention. First Sunday of every month. Look at this right here. This is probably the flyer that they would put up in stores. If, I don't know, stores had these right here. But Popeye Day, can you imagine that? Popeye was always showing on Sunday mornings, typically in the LA area. Channel 5, I believe it was. Tom Hatton, I think. But look at this right here. Oh, yeah. This is how this goes right here. Back then, a mailing list was one guy handwriting. I don't live there anymore, but handwriting the addresses on the mailing list. Can you imagine that if you had 200 or 300 people on the mailing list? You're handwriting all this stuff like that. So anyway, but get this one right here. Okay, I'm not going to read through this, but the convention had moved to the Ambassador Hotel in Wilshire Boulevard, okay? Now get this, I mean, it goes down, it talks about the dealer room and whatnot, and what you get for 50 cents. I mean, 50 cents was nothing back then either, So, the reason the convention moved so abruptly is because the Los Angeles Hilton had complaints about the conduct of people coming to the convention and would not renew the contract. This is unfortunately not only for the problem it caused in finding a new location with only a very limited amount of time, but that it insults many of you who are well behaved and gives a bad image for the comic book and science fiction type conventions. This is just another reason the admission had to be increased, as moving to a new hotel so quickly can be very costly. I don't know. It says, the admission was $1. Okay, that wasn't hurting people back then, you know. I don't think it's going to keep people from attending the show. You know, going to see a movie was a lot more expensive than that back then. I don't know how expensive, but it wasn't $1. You know, it had to be more than that. But Casino Royale, as far as the movies going on, the Yellow Submarine, maybe the Yellow Submarine. We used to watch that on TV about once a year. It'd come on. But upcoming conventions, it's mailed from 1 to 3. This convention newsletter is mailed from 1 to 3 times a year. Oh, not monthly. Okay, makes sense. Some guy handwriting a bunch of things, you know. I think it would be better if he just typed out all those letters onto addresses onto a piece of paper like that, so he can just Xerox it off and then, you know, cut it off with a, you know, scissor each time. That would have been faster back then. Definitely, there wasn't things like labels and things like that back in '81. You know, it would have caused some kind of big, you know, even keeping a mailing list on one of those old computers would have taken up a lot of memory. So, let's see. The Overstreet. Okay, look at this. The Overstreet 1981 Overstreet comic book price guide will be on sale at $1 off both the soft and hardcover editions. Great savings. You know, so. Anyways, here's the little flyer for this one right here. Only $1 admission. He might have lowered the admission at another show. You know, once they got kind of a established place, they moved over to the Shrine building. I don't know, Shrine Auditorium, I think it's called, near USC. And Exposition Park, I think it is. But anyways, just, you know, this thing went on for so many years, and I think it was going on, like I said, up until the pandemic. I don't think it's back there. I went to 1 or 2 shows after this. Years later, you know, when I don't know, I was going to college and in LA, and I don't know, went to, you know, mentioned it to some other comic book fans that hadn't been to the show before, and I think we went to it then. And then probably in the mid to late 90s, I believe, we went to a show there when John Woo and Chow Yun-fat were going to be the guest speakers, and we went to that convention. It was still at the Shrine. But it was just kind of interesting. I always remember that one because so many people were up there to get in line to get autographs and stuff, and there was a lot of people at that show. But on the convention floor back then, there were all these bootleg copies of John Woo movies, you know, being sold by these, you know, bootleg VHS tape sellers. I don't think they were on DVD at the time. I think they were actually VHS tapes still. So I don't know. It was just kind of interesting. I don't know if John Woo walked the floor. I saw Glenn Danzig walking around that show too. No, it might have been. No, I think it was a previous one, not that one. But I don't know. It was just interesting to me. So, anyways, well, the Los Angeles Comic Book and Science Fiction Convention, not to be mistaken with the Los Angeles Comic Con or whatever it's called these days. This one was the monthly one that went on for so many decades. And if that guy is around and sees this, I want to say thank you for doing these shows all those years. And I don't know, it was just really important to, you know, the comic book community back then, having kind of an established regular show going on a monthly basis. So I don't know, just really fun stuff, and you know, always enjoyed it when I was attending them. So, and collecting. All right. So, anyways, thanks for watching.